for whatever reason, you were gracious enough to give us a few minutes, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Hope you guys are busy is right. Getting ready to hit the road recruiting again tomorrow. And start a class this week. So a lot happening in Columbia and a lot happening across the football world for sure.
Oh, so where are you going tomorrow? Who are you going to see? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it'll be local. I know that. We got some team activities here with our team tomorrow morning, and so that'll finish up late morning. So wherever I go tomorrow, it'll be local. Don't have a lot of travel capabilities tomorrow because I won't be able to hit the road till about 12 noon. But we got half a day, and tomorrow night we'll make the most of it.
Well, as you just saw, we had your man precede you here. He's drinking beer on the air. You're not drinking beer in the office, are you?
No, a little water, brother. So today. There were some late nights this season where
yeah. Well, hey, look, man. With what y'all go through as coaches, I don't know how you're not drinking beer a lot more than you probably do. Dealing with some of the stuff y'all deal with, but it is what it is. So, hey, look, man, thanks a lot, and we're gonna let you get back to work here in just a minute. Hope you and Emily and your kids had a happy New Year and good holidays. I know December you'd much rather be on the road getting ready for a bowl game, and as you've told me before, December kind of sucks to be a college football coach with everything you'll have to deal with now because you don't get to sleep. You miss Santa Claus flying in, but we sure hope you got to spend some quality time with your family. And then yesterday we find out that Coach Saban is retiring. Yeah. I mean, when you heard that, like, what went through your head?
I was shocked. I was on my phone actually and saw the tweet from Chris Lowe. So originally I clicked on it to see if it was a fake Chris Lowe account because that was my first reaction. Like, this can't be true. Somebody made this up. And then it was just honestly shock. I mean, I know there's been some articles out there and it's true. We were literally on a SEC head coach's Zoom yesterday. Started at 11 a.m. and we finished up a little after 12 noon. And he was on the call from his office. He was an active participant in the Zoom talking about a lot of the stuff you were talking about, the transfer portal, the recruiting calendar, NIL, all that stuff that's going on in college athletics right now. He was an active participant on that. So I don't know, maybe he got off that call and said, "The heck with this," after listening to that call for an hour. I don't know. But yeah, I was shocked. But, then once you realize it's real, you just sit back and the reverence that I have for him, the respect I have for him, what he's accomplished, the way that he's gone about his business is immeasurable. And it's a big loss for college football.
Shane, I told the story earlier that in 2022 is the last Alabama game I did on the SEC network, and you know how it is. The TV guys come in, we sit down with you for 30 minutes before you roll out the coordinators, a couple players, and usually it's about the game, it's about the depth chart, it's about keys, and this was 25 out of the 30 minutes Nick used to go on a diatribe about the unhealthy state of college football. And that's the only reason why I wasn't shocked by the news yesterday, because I could tell it was really getting to him. It just goes against the fabric. It's not as if he was slipping. It's not as if he couldn't relate to players still. The game certainly didn't pass him by. He just didn't – he wasn't a fan of it. And every coach that I've talked to off the record says the same thing. So I'm curious, you're part of the younger guard of SEC coaches. I mean – when a piece of news like this, if this doesn't set some wheels in motion for change and guardrails and everything else, what does? Can you use this news to maybe get a little more steam behind a movement to get some more structure in a sport that desperately needs it?
Yeah, I would hope so. And again, I don't want to speak for Coach Saban and his reasons and don't want to directly attribute it to, some of the things that are going on in college athletics right now, but it certainly doesn't help. And he's been outspoken about that, some of the changes that he would like to see and some of the things that aren't, sustainable and healthy for the game. And to me, that's one thing about him is he always was about what was best or what is best for the game of football. And I always have always had so much respect for him because when change has come, he's never been slow to adapt. He's always, managed to stay ahead of everyone and stay on the cutting edge. And I think it's an unbelievable attribute that he has, but certainly it's a different time. and in college athletics, and the one that he came into, the one my dad coached in, the one I got into. It's changed so much in 5 years, without a doubt. And you got to continue to adjust. And you're right, we do need some guardrails and do need to get some things a little bit more structured, because there's a lot of great things about the game and the profession. Don't get me wrong, but it's really, 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 really tough right now in a lot of ways. Just building a roster, maintaining a roster, and we can be better, and there's no doubt about it.
I'm just curious your dad's thoughts, because he's part of that same kind of generation. I'm sure they have had conversations at some point during their illustrious careers. What does your dad say about Nick Saban?
Just the respect, and that's the thing about Coach Saban. Like, he's just, my dad coached against him when Coach Saban was at LSU, and my dad was at Virginia Tech. They played against each other, and my dad was able to come out on top that day. Virginia Tech was, and then coached against him when he was at Alabama, and my dad was at Tech. And there's a great respect. Coach Saban's a rural West Virginia native, and my dad's a rural Southwest Virginia native. And that's one thing I appreciate about Coach Saban is anytime we have SEC meetings, we do two of them a year in person, the SEC head coaches with Commissioner Sankey, one time a year in Birmingham in February, and then another one in May down in Destin. And literally whenever I see Coach Saban, the first thing he always does is just ask me how my dad's doing. And that always has meant a lot to me, and appreciate him always, saying that.
I was going to ask you about that. First thing I want to do is ask you about the report from J.C. Sherbert that Saban, Belichick, and Pete Carroll will be joining your staff as analysts. Is that true?
I'm all for it. I'm not going to say no. If that's the case, I'm going to kick back, put my feet up on the desk, and just recruit and let them handle it.
That's why JC's not here. He's busy typing this thing up. No, I was going to ask you what your relationship with him is like, because I feel like, anytime that you listen to him speak, you learn something. And I don't just mean that about football, Coach. I don't know that you could say like he's had this impact, whatever that is, on college football. I think he's had an impact on college athletics. I think he's had an impact on America. I mean, I think he's done more for a lot of people in this country than, I'm not going to reel you into this, and you could argue that a lot of politicians and presidents have done. I mean, this guy is, when he speaks, people stop and listen. So I was curious what you've learned from him.
Yeah, just that. I mean, I think he's you would think, I talk about some of those league meetings we go to, a guy of his stature, you can tell in those rooms the respect that every coach has for him in those rooms. And, there's not a lot of people, I think very few people in those rooms, fellow coaches, call him Nick. I never have. It's always Coach Saban. And we're talking about established head coaches in the SEC that say that to him. And it is a respect. One, because of what he's done on the field, but how he carries himself and does things off the field as well. And I've always told somebody yesterday, I was doing an interview, and one of the coolest things for me was when I got the head coaching job here at South Carolina, literally the very next day, he called me just to say, hey, congratulations, welcome to the SEC. If I can help in any way, please let me know. And that was like kind of like a holy crap, Nick Saban called me, type moment. And it just kind of says something about him. Nothing that he made public or anything like that, just did that. And I think it goes back to, he knew my dad, and I had interviewed him for a job with him right before I came to South Carolina, actually back in 2007, when he got the job at Alabama. He interviewed me for a job and met him then. And that was a crazy experience, but a great experience for me. And so I knew him a little bit before I came back into the league, but my respect for him over the years just grew. Any book that has ever been written about him or that he's been involved with, I've read, and he's somebody that I constantly learn from, even just watching, press conferences and interviews and things he does, as a coach still to this day. Every time that he was on camera, I made sure I was listening because you could pick up something from him.
That is, so did you hear that? He interviewed you in 2007. I was going to ask you about 2007. We were talking about this earlier with Mike. when Coach Saban got hired down there, they had initially attempted to hire Rich Rodriguez, and then he stayed at West Virginia, right?
Yep.
And then they called Coach Spurrier,
Mm-hmm.
and Coach Spurrier said, "Well, you probably need to hire that Nick Saban guy. He's probably your guy. I'm gonna stay right here." And so, Coach Spurrier, I've heard him say before, coaching is all about timing. I don't know if you believe in that or not, but he said coaching is all about timing and how things work out and this, that, and the other. And I was going to ask you today, if Coach Spurrier had said, you know what, I think I will go to Alabama. Let's give this thing a shot. If you would have ever ended up at South Carolina, and if you'd be where you are today.
Probably not. It's crazy how it all works. It really is. I mean, I think about all those things. What if this person had gotten this, or what if this had happened, and things like that. Probably not. Who knows what would have happened? But yeah, I was coaching at Mississippi State in 2006, and had a relationship. Obviously, was good friends at the time. Still am with Kirby Smart, and I'll never forget Kirby calling me and saying Kirby was with the Miami Dolphins with Saban at the time. And Kirby calling me and saying, "Hey, I think Coach Saban's taking this Alabama job. I've already given him your name as somebody that he should interview for like a special teams tight end position." And he got the job, and literally it was crazy. I'll never forget his first day in Tuscaloosa was the day that he interviewed me for the job. And so like he literally, like the day he arrives, this is his first day reporting to work, and here's Chris Mortensen from ESPN was with him that day. And it was myself, and I think Kevin Steele, who was already there as the defensive coordinator. So Coach Steele was with me. He had like 3 coaches there that day that he was interviewing for jobs. I was one of them. And that would have been early January, second week of January, something like that. He ended up hiring, I think he was very thorough, as you know. I think he ended up hiring Ron Middleton. He ended up hiring him. And then about a month later is when Coach Spurrier called. I went back to Mississippi State, finished up recruiting with them. Signing day, there was only one signing day back then. We had signing day in February, and then right after that is when Coach Spurrier called, and the rest is history. But yeah, it's crazy how things work out. Who knows what would have happened if things had gone differently there.
So what you see that, Mike? What we just heard is had Saban hired Shane, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He'd be the head coach at Alabama right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or just as easily like Tuscaloosa Academy coaching high school.
Where the game is still pure, Shane. Where the game is still pure. I one thing too, as I look at it across the board, and again, I think of your dad, and I think of Bobby Bowden, and I think of Saban now, and all these coaches that long tenured, and in many cases long tenured at one particular spot. And I just wonder if we're about to lose that. It doesn't seem like this is set up for coaches to be at one spot for very long, or even be in the game for very long. As a fan, I hate it. But as Nick himself would say, it is what it is, right? Adapt or die. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that, on kind of the new nature of a lack of continuity, which is always a setback for a program whenever you make a coaching change, but just the difference in nature of the lack of continuity in college football.
Yeah, it's completely different. I think one, you're going to see more coaches in one place for less time, whether it's because they go to the NFL or they just want to get out of it and do something else. And a lot of that is because of some of the issues that, I'm not trying to get on the soapbox talking about how bad we had it, because there's a lot of really great things going on. Don't get me wrong, but the structure, the calendar, the things like that, it certainly wears on people. And I think that's why you've seen guys like Coach Saban get out of it. Why you see Mike Krzyzewski retire, and Roy Williams and Jay Wright, the basketball coach at Villanova. I mean, a lot of guys that you could argue were still somewhat in their prime that got out of it. But then I think also it's a different time. My wife and I were talking this morning, honestly, and I've said this story before, but my dad at Virginia Tech, year 1, he won 2 games. Year 2, he won 3 games. Year 3 and 4, he won 6 games and then 6 games. Year 5, he won 5 games. Year 6, he won 2 games. and they hung with him to the 7th year. So he had 4 of his first 6 years were losing seasons. And then they hung with him because the AD believed that he was making progress and doing the right things and was on track. And then the next thing you know, 93, his 7th year, they go to the Independence Bowl, win 9 games, and then the rest is history. And he goes down as a college football Hall of Famer. But that would never happen in today's time. And he wouldn't have made it to his 3rd season, start going 2-9 and 3-8 probably. But it does take time, and I just think it's so much of in some ways it takes time. It's different now with the portal and things like that, but certainly patience is thinner. You're expected to win now, and you combine that with some of the issues in college athletics. I think the days of coaches being at one school for a long time, not that it's not going to happen. I mean, I've said it before and I mean it. I'd love to be here for a long time, as long as they'll have me. But I think it's just in a lot of ways you see a lot of coaches that either want to get out and move on or stay ahead of the posse or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's amazing to look at his career and think that, I mean, look what he achieved. Mike said it earlier. I don't know if we'll see that again. I know Gamecock fans hope they see it, and they hope you're the one leading the charge. But it's just, it's mind blowing.
Or you could even argue, y'all know better than I do. I read a book that on Mike Krzyzewski. Like, if I'm not mistaken, like his first 2 years at Duke, or I saw the thing there's a documentary or something out on Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. Like, his first 2 seasons as the head basketball coach at Duke were awful. And then it was year 3 or year 4 where it took off. And you just think, if you had somebody that said after year 2 with Mike Krzyzewski, back-to-back losing seasons in the ACC, we got the wrong guy. And who knows how that story ends as well. But yeah, it's different, but you know what you're signing up for when you get into it. And there's a lot of ways to make your team better quicker than you had in the past. So like Coach Saban always did a great job of, you can sit around and complain about things. You can find a way to adapt and make it a positive for you and your program. And that's what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do.
Coach, one last one for me. I talked about, of all the accolades of Nick Saban, the most staggering number is the first-round draft picks, which he had more in his career than most universities have had in 100 years. Obviously, recruiting and evaluating talent, something that he was pretty good at. Turning it to you and your program as if you don't have enough to juggle, I'm curious, how many phone calls have you gotten and will you get in the next few weeks about Spencer Rattler teams trying to get a little extra insight on what they're looking at and what is going to be a really quarterback-rich draft?
Yeah, quite a bit. I think it'll pick up. A lot of those, Mike, those conversations took place during the fall, because we're open to NFL scouts around here every week, every day of the week, so NFL scouts know they can come watch us practice anytime they want throughout the year. So you've got NFL scouts and personnel people that are coming in and watching you practice throughout the season. And when they come, they want to steal 5 minutes of your time to talk about, Spencer and your other guys also. So a lot of those conversations took place during the season, but now as the season's winding down and the NFL teams are getting ready for the Senior Bowl and Combine, East-West game, and all that stuff as well, those calls will really pick up as well. But, excited for Spencer. He did a great job the last 2 years, put himself in a great position going into the draft, improved from 2022 to 2023, obviously dealt with some adversity this season with some of our injuries on the offensive line, as you guys are aware, but hung in there. And I think I know he gained the respect of a lot of NFL teams with the way that he, one, played this past season, but two, how he, handled himself and carried himself and the pro that he is.
Right. Boy, you hit the nail on the head when he committed to this program. What an outstanding teammate that kid is. Wow. Yeah. He's gonna play in the league for a while. He can throw it as good as anybody, and like you've said, he's just a phenomenal kid to have around. Coach, we'll let you run on that note. I know you got all kinds of stuff going on, and hopefully you'll get a chance to get down here to the beach soon. I got to get Michelle Wilkins. I don't know if you've ever met Michelle. She owns electric bikes at Charleston. I got to get her to get you one of those electric bikes so you can cruise around out there when you're down, cruise around the island and, go see the things and stuff like that.
I'm a big bike rider. I'm old school though. So we never turned down any kind of new school type stuff as well, but love to be outdoors and love to be on the bike. So we can step up our game a little bit.
Yeah, I'll see what I can muscle up from her over there. But anyways, hey, look, man, great to see you, and really, really do appreciate you just stepping right in like that. I didn't even think you'd have the time, but as you always do, you made some for us and for everybody else. So thanks for what you do, and we look forward to seeing you pretty soon. All the best to your family.
I appreciate it. Thanks to you guys, and appreciate all you guys are about. I'm glad to do it anytime. And keep up the great work.
All right,
Thank you,
brother.
Shane.
See you,
Thanks,
man.
fellas. Y'all take care.